This week's episode of the Wildcard Podcast is brought to you by the World Health Organization. The World Health Organization, saving lives, eradicating diseases. So far, smallpox has been completely eradicated by vaccines.
I have smallpox.
Saving approximately 5 million lives.
You don't have
annually.
smallpox. It's been eradicated.
It doesn't exist anymore.
I have it. I'm almost certain.
And polio could be next.
I have polio. My left leg. It's sore. It's like I can't move it. It's
left leg
paralyzed.
sore because you came from vacation.
Over 80% of the world's children are now being immunized against the polio virus.
And then polio.
And the cases have been cut by 400,000. Measles is next up on the list.
That's another thing that I have.
You don't have measles, Ron. You don't.
Spots on my face.
Vaccines
Those are sunspots, Ron.
Have brought 7 major human diseases under control. Smallpox,
I have
diphtheria,
smallpox and diphtheria. Diphtheria is one of those things.
You don't have diphtheria.
My stomach hurts like
tetanus.
Your stomach hurts because
Yellow fever.
My fever is yellow.
Whooping cough.
It's making me
What does yellow feel like?
The CDC has just eliminated oily discharges from the vagina.
I have oily discharges from my vagina.
Ron, you make me sick.
Everything's going dim. So cold. So cold.
Welcome to the Wildcard Podcast. I'm your host, Jared Eaton, and my co-pilots on this journey to wherever are my good friends Jeff Curtis.
Hello.
And the man who puts the bum in beach bum, he who is freshly vacated, the sandiest guy I know, old Krusty Bones himself, Ron Blair.
You forgot to mention my fantastic tan that I came
Absolutely.
back with. It's not as good as I want.
The bronze dragon.
I wanted to look more like a pirate when I came back, but I am obviously darker right now than I was.
You know pirates only have one eye patch. I don't know why you're wearing two. Right?
Yeah, because I don't want to see what's ahead of me now.
That's fair.
Now that vacation is over.
So now that you are back.
Nothing to look forward
to. That's
freshly vacated, Ron.
Oh, man.
Tell the deckheads what this podcast is all about.
This podcast is about doing it and doing it and doing it well. Doing it and doing it and doing it well.
Do it. Just do it.
That's what it's about.
That's what they say.
All right.
That's what they always say.
That's all I got for today.
Right, so let's not delay this any longer. We're at the favorites question. Mm-hmm. And of course, today's favorites question is, what is your favorite vacation you've taken in the last week?
Oh my God. I took a vacation last week and it was the greatest week.
No way.
It was the greatest week ever.
I'm just glad all our predictions came true.
Yeah, absolutely. And who would have thought?
We made ahead of time, so there's no way we would know, but all those things happened.
Who would have thought that all that could have happened?
We missed California.
It was insanity.
Oh, yeah.
Goodbye. Yeah. Sorry, California. We'll see you later.
All right, so let's start with Jeff. Jeff, what's your favorite vacation you've taken in the last week?
Yes, I, who did not brag about going on vacation for the last 3 podcasts, I went on vacation to Holiday World. It was a last-minute thing, and I've never been to Holiday World, and Madeline's friends have been bugging her for years about how she could not have been to Holiday World yet.
Right, it's just up the road.
Just up the road, about a 2-hour drive. And so we went up there, spent 2 days. It's actually a really nice place. We had a really good time. I've learned a number of things, such as I do not fit in roller coaster seats very well. I am too big.
We talked about that in the Kings Island.
I am too big for them, and the one roller coaster that I was on made me never want to ride another roller coaster in my life. I'm too old and fat to ride roller coasters.
It must have been the Voyage.
Thunderbird?
No, it was
Thunderbird?
It wasn't Raven. It was Legend.
Legend.
Oh.
It was the Legend.
I like that one. I have a good time with that.
And it's shaking my body and whacking it back and forth. And as I got off,
the newer ones like Thunderbird do that less, but I don't ride roller coasters.
And I got up feeling like I was lucky not to have had a heart attack, and so I'm done with roller coasters. I did see Thunderbird, where I used to love roller coasters, and that would be a fantastic trip. I'm not doing it. Mm-hmm. So a lot of our time was spent in the water park, the Splash and Safari.
It's one of the best in the country.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
And I really loved the Mammoth water coaster. That was fantastic. Except when the water splashed me in the eye at the very beginning and washed my contact to the side, and I could see nothing. And so I spent the entire ride with my eyes closed, trying to be able to see again. But I enjoyed the ride. It was fantastic.
Well, that's lovely.
But I came back with blisters on both feet.
As you will.
Hot ground.
Very hard to walk and totally exhausted after only 2 days there.
Yeah. They had great food there too. There's good food.
The food is pretty good.
The food was good.
I love the pizza at the Kringle Cafe.
I love the fact that you can put money on these wristbands and rent a locker and put all your stuff in and still be able to buy stuff with your wristband.
I've never seen that before.
And so that you don't have to worry about where am I going to keep my money? Where am I going to keep my wallet?
That's a new kind of thing.
But we only took the 3 pictures I posted on Facebook because that was on our way out because we put our phones in the locker too and stuff because you're going on Splash Safari. Oh, you got Splash Safari. What are you going to do with it?
I used to do Lazy River and just sit in that Lazy River forever.
Yeah, that's lovely.
I did Lazy River. And I'm too fat for their
inner tubes.
fucking inner tubes, so I kept tipping over. Or when I tried to just have it on my upper body, I'm dragging my feet were dragging on the bottom.
Come on,
then I was sitting on it. So I was sitting on it, and Joe was in hers and holding onto mine, and I was having to hold my head and shoulders up so that because if I relaxed, my head was dragging in the water, and it's like this uncomfortable thing.
So it wasn't relaxing at all.
It wasn't relaxing at all. I went around twice, and I never got relaxed.
Oh, that's
I only got
horrible.
more stressed out.
No, that's awful.
That was my experience. What about you, Ron?
Holy shit!
Have you gone on vacation?
Yeah, I did a
Let me
little
talk
thing
about mine
last week.
first.
Okay.
So I went to work, and then that's all I got to say. Yeah, I guess you.
Well, good because it's my fucking turn.
Now.
No, it was ridiculous. It was the greatest week ever.
Oh, okay. Wow.
We took, I know.
Not even just your greatest week ever. It was the greatest week ever.
I've been home for like 14 hours. All right, give me a break. But
I'm not going to do that.
I know, and you shouldn't. It was fantastic. We took Emily and Jake, the deckheads, with us. And they had never been on an adult vacation, on their own without parental supervision. I like to consider us training wheels for them as they go into adult life.
I think they're both adult enough to not need training wheels.
I don't know. Vacation's tough if you've never
a tween.
That's true. If you've never really been on vacation, though, it's tough. Like
I've only really done road trips when I was like right out of high school.
Yeah, on your own.
Well, with some friends, but yeah.
Yeah. See,
we graduated 2005 in May, and the end of June, there was myself and 3 buddies took a road trip out to Colorado for 2 weeks.
And they've never done that. This was their first time, so they had a really good time. We stayed at a lovely condo in Cocoa Beach, which is really nice. The water's a little murky. It's a little spooky, but I got in to my chest, up to I got in much deeper than I thought I would.
Generally spooked by those things.
Yeah.
And you managed to not get eaten by a shark.
I managed to not even get bitten, as far as I know. By a shark, as far as I know.
I think you'd know.
Caleb probably.
However, the first night we were there, just exhausted. I'd had 2 hours of sleep within a 36-hour period.
Excellent.
Yeah. And we drove straight down there, which was a ludicrous thing to do. And we got there, and we went to the I can't remember the name of it. A Shark Pit. It was the Shark Pit restaurant in a Sheraton hotel. And they sat us in front of an aquarium.
Okay.
That had like a shark, blacktip reef shark and eels in it and lovely fish. And we just ate my fish and chips in front of... I ate so much fish and chips over the week, just staring at them.
Yeah, this could be you.
What are you going to do, eel? I'm right here. And that was night one, and then we went to Universal, and I could write a book on Universal. Absolutely, it really is. It's a fantastic place.
I haven't gone in over a decade, but I still have fond memories.
I'm sure the changes they've made would blow you away too. No,
because the rides I remember don't exist anymore. I mean, Jaws.
No, Jaws is not there. The old King Kong's not there. The Earthquake ride's gone.
E.T.
I think E.T. is. Yeah, Twister's gone.
Back
to the Future's gone.
Back to the Future. Gone. Everything I know.
All of those are gone. The E.T. ride still remains and is still just a magical journey. Oh, it's so good. It's so fun. The Shrek 4D ride sucks. It's horrible. It's freaking horrible.
Did you ride the Spider-Man one?
Fuck yeah, I did. I rode that twice. Holy God Almighty, that's the best ride.
I remember that there was a Men in Black little shooter ride.
That was Men in Black was okay.
I won, so I feel really good.
Well,
about
sure.
If
I'm not good at them, and if you put the gun down, it's just a fun ride to take anyway.
Was Jared's high score still there?
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, it was on a leaderboard. It was like, suck it, bro. Love Jared.
Good luck.
Right.
That's what I wrote. How do you know that?
I saw it. It was right there. But I feel like they allocated the Warner Brothers for the Harry Potter rights.
Yeah.
Why can they not allocate other films that they want to? And I thought Ghostbusters would have made a much better shooter ride than Men in Black.
The car was there when I went.
Was it?
It was like a parade in the
I did not see that. I saw the Blues Brothers
we're talking
car.
about a decade ago.
Right. But I thought that would have been better. Harry Potter Land is completely immersive.
I bet.
And fantastic. And the food at Universal, good God Almighty! Like if you eat a burger, you're eating a burger from a guy flipping a burger. But if you go to some of these restaurants, you're going to get a chef created meal.
Really?
Yeah, there was an Emerald restaurant when I went there, and we went there and got the Emerald.
That is gone now, but it's that same kind of thing.
Decade plus ago.
Sure, but yeah, we went the first day we ate at the. I think it was the Three Broomsticks in Diagon Alley. And they feed you until you die. Again, I had the fish and chips there because if you're in Florida, you want fish. At least something fresh, closer to fresh than what you're used to. And this seemed very, very fresh, what they were serving. And the last day we went to a place called Mythos Diner, which was phenomenal. That's like one of the 2 nicer restaurants there with tableside service. And they bring you bread, and there's a waitress and all that. And I had the flounder with it had like a.
You ate flounder?
Oh
Lindy!
Yeah, I ate so much fish. Yeah, I was thinking about her the whole time that I was eating her. But it was lovely. It had mashed potatoes on top of it with a nice white wine cream sauce and asparagus over it. It was lovely.
Put your pinky down. Stop holding your pinky out.
I felt so classy. But the highlight of the entire time at Universal Studios, I could go on about the rides. The rides are fantastic. Dudley Do-Right's my favorite.
Oh, the big long
I couldn't fit. My fat ass can't even fit in the seat to try the thing. Yeah. It's so tight, and I wanted to. I was looking at it, going, "Oh God damn it!" There were 4 rides I didn't get to ride, and I went in knowing that I probably wouldn't get to ride some of these. The 2 roller coasters for Harry Potter, the big roller coasters, couldn't ride those. Well, that's gone.
Okay.
But there's a Escape from Gringotts, which is
the minecart thing.
Yes, and the Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey. I couldn't fit on that one. Oh. And then the Rip Ride Rocket, which is the scariest looking roller coaster I've ever seen in my life.
I'm familiar with that one. But you rode the Dudley Do-Right log flume that's like
twice,
a million miles tall.
It's the best.
It's
the best.
So high.
Except the second time we rode, it was at night, and I'm all about riding rides at night, and there's the Dudley Do-Right, right.
Cool off a little bit.
And that one, it's such a good ride, but we got on there, and there's a point where one of the logs had stopped, and we bumped into them in the middle of the ride.
Wow.
And then the people bumped in behind us, and it like really jarred my back. I went, oh God, that's horrible. And then we're getting on top of a hill, and we see them just going down it, and I said, okay, we have to stop. I'm freaking out for half the ride going, we have to stop right now because we're going to smash into them and we're both going to explode.
Yeah, that's how it works.
It's like a 75-foot drop.
It's
and you're going this ridiculous speed down this hill, and I thought, it's going to smash us all into tiny pieces if we hit. I was like, you must stop this ride. But anyway, the high...
So then he got smashed into pieces?
No, of course not. But we were fine. We lived, I guess. And
I'm not sure.
So I'm not sure either. And the Transformers ride, not a fan.
Sure. What about Jurassic Park? Was
Jurassic Park was everything you'd want it to be.
I've ridden that one.
Everything you'd want it to be. It's so simple, but it's so cool.
It's just it's a dinosaur place.
And the Mummy Returns ride. The Mummy, it's a roller coaster. It's indoors, and there's mummies popping out at you, and of course they do holograms so much down there. And that was just amazing, this roller coaster. But the highlight was around 5:30, 6:30. The last night we were there, we were in line for the Popeye raft ride. This would have been our second time riding it. It's a best raft ride. Yeah, best raft ride I've ever ridden.
The one at Hollywood is actually not bad.
Yeah, that one's okay. That one's fun.
They say it's the longest in the world.
Mm-hmm. I don't think that's true. I don't know that that's true. I've ridden longer than that. I rode one at
Animal Kingdom. It's pretty solid as well. But
I've heard that's
I never did the Popeye one.
The Popeye one is phenomenal, but we were in line, and we thought this might happen, and we were in line, and it starts storming its ass off outside. So they closed it while we're in line, and we're indoors, but we're getting wind and rain blown in us from
because it's covered, but you're not surrounded.
Right, exactly. And so people start leaving the line.
Yeah, and you're like moving forward.
And there becomes a small group of us that's like, goodbye, hell. We're going to do this ride again before we leave.
Yeah.
And so the whole ordeal lasted two and a half hours almost from the time, because the storm lasted an hour. Yeah. And it was lightning, and when it's lightning, you can't do it. Yeah. And they had to drain the whole thing and refill it.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So by that time...
Yeah, I guess clean the water. It makes sense.
It's, and this is the beautiful thing. At this point, we were all survivors in a line after everybody else had bailed. And so there was an African-American couple. They bailed later on, but we bonded with them. We bonded with a lovely Middle Eastern woman who was by herself in a little hijab. And she was very young. We bonded with her, and then a British family from near the
That's awesome.
border of Scotland.
Look at this. The wild card goes global.
I know. I'm not social for the most part, but I was in line for a flight of the Hippogriff, and there was another British couple in front of us. They were from Leicester, and then I met this other couple that was from near the border of Scotland. And when I told them I had met another couple from Leicester, they go, "Oh, it's like meeting someone from Arkansas, isn't it?"
Wow, they have that reference in
yes,
their bank.
they absolutely
Makes me
did.
so happy.
And it cracked me up. So we spent 2 hours with these people, and we became like this group of people.
All you did was talk about Elephant Man, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I did a show once.
I did a show once where I used an accent. Would you like to hear it? Actual British people? No, I never did that.
That was me in front of Melanie. I felt so nervous.
Right. But there was a point when the line finally started moving after 2 hours. My family, who had been playing hacky sack and slapping the shit out of each other, we roast each other on vacation something horribly, and we're just kind of rowdy and entertaining. I'd like to think. And
actually, that's the entire reason everyone else left the line.
That's absolutely. It wasn't the rain. They were like, I don't care if it's storming. We got to get away from these people. Right. So we're cracking people up. And then when the line starts moving, I say, "Come on, everyone, follow me." And my family is like, "Whoa, yeah, we're going to ride." And this lovely Japanese woman in front of us turns to me and she goes, "Your family has a lot of energy."
She's not wrong.
She's not wrong. Yeah. We are an energetic people. So we finally rode the ride, adding the young Middle Eastern woman to our group and the family of the British family of 4 to our group. So it made 11. They seat 12.
Wow.
But when
that's a big
oh yeah, it's huge. But when we were in there, we were like, these are our people. We survived this together, and now we're riding together. And so there was this lovely intercontinental bond that we formed with these people in this survival group at Popeyes, and it was really
Popeyes chicken.
It was one of those. It was one of those moments. No, it's decent chicken. Yeah. It was one of those moments where you went, "This is what it's all about." We're all these nationalities get along together and bonding together over these shared experiences. That was the best thing.
So glad you got to experience that. I'm glad you've come back.
I'm so happy.
Ready to go to work. And just.
I'm not scared of it. I'm okay.
And that's kind of how I feel sometimes. Like
rejuvenated.
School is starting up, kids are coming back, and I'm like, let's do this.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. I'm okay going into tomorrow.
Speaking of things people are okay with, Jeffisodes.
Let's do a Jeffisodes.
Everyone is always okay with.
They're always okay with a Jeffisodes. Yes. Okay. All right. So today, my friends,
Jeff
I've got a lot of paper.
44-page document. I intend to talk through the entirety.
Jared was bragging about his 22 pages last week.
And then you talked through the entirety of that.
Not the entirety. I have eventually let you have your say.
How much?
I think you had it coming over all this time.
I think I skipped about 3 pages.
3 pages. Okay.
I made through most of what I wanted to get through.
All right.
Okay. We are going to be talking about a disappearance that happened 81 years ago.
I couldn't do my math. What year is that?
Like the
all right.
20s? No,
So,
30s, I guess.
It'd be 1937.
Yeah.
1937. Fatty Arbuckle was the king of Hollywood.
Okay.
All right.
This wouldn't be over the Pacific Northwest, would it?
No.
Okay. No, that was 1978.
So I'm going to
I didn't know what you were
78.
I'm going to read you a poem.
Oh, the Amelia Earhart. Okay, go ahead.
I'm going to read you a poem, and then you're going to tell me from this poem, if you can, who we're talking about.
Okay. Amelia Earhart was way before what I was just talking about.
Okay.
Emptied is old Lorenzo's royal crypt. Breathless now stands the startled Taj Mahal. Amelia lies in the blue manuscript.
Yeah.
The sea, true heroine's memorial. So she achieves. What if the fatal prize be misty tomb with airy marble set? Who knows where Desdemona's kerchief lies, or where the last word of dark Juliet? A sudden courage plucks us from ourselves, bids us to be heroine, though death the price. Wherefore we bed our many lilied shells, the straight defenders of the sacrifice. Count her among the beautiful and brave, her turquoise mausoleum in each wave.
That's nice.
This is by
Nathalia Crane is the author of this poem.
Lovely.
So clearly Charles Lindbergh.
Yeah. The Lindbergh baby. It's the Lindbergh baby disappearing into the ocean. I remember that.
Amelia Earhart.
Amelia Earhart, of course.
Didn't she disappear on July 24th?
No.
There's a July 24th somewhere in the Amelia Earhart story.
There is.
Yeah, I was thinking that because
she was
when
born
I was a kid,
on July
I saw a
24th.
documentary on it. That she and I share.
Well,
so
I
on
was gonna
July,
say, Ron, why do you know that date?
it was either death or birth, and since we don't know that she really died, disappeared.
So July 24th was the would have been her 121st birthday.
Happy birthday, Amelia. She was very brave. Well, okay, she doesn't care.
Yeah.
She was very brave lady for doing what she did.
All right. So she was born on Ron's birthday in 1897. Before it was Ron's birthday, when it was still her birthday.
Right.
In Atchison, Kansas. And she disappeared on July 2nd, 1937, 22 days shy of her 40th birthday.
40.
Wow. She was still a young lass.
Just all July. It's just such a great month.
It's good. It's good for tragedy. It's good for comedy.
Yep.
Yeah, vacation.
Birthdays.
Familiar.
So, Amelia was the first woman to be acknowledged as a pilot first and a woman second.
Ooh.
Yeah.
She was recognized as a pilot, and she was a woman.
She was well respected.
Yeah,
One of my favorite musicals we talked to here about before is "Come From Away."
Yes.
And there is an entire song about a female pilot, and it's
I love that song.
Yeah.
"Me in the Sky." Beautiful song.
So you were talking about Lindbergh. Well, much was made at the time about how Amelia and Carl Lindbergh resembled each other.
Huh.
They look very much alike, and neither one of them.
Amelia's very handsome woman.
Who's that insult more?
And neither of them appreciated the comparison. To be quite frank.
I'm sure they did not.
She started a number of organizations, one of them being the International 99s, which was an international organization for female pilots.
Neat.
It still exists.
Wow.
All right. Someday, this is a quote from Amelia. I've got a lot of Amelia quotes in here.
Okay,
and
cool.
we're going to be talking mostly about her last flight, but we're going to talk about a little bit
who she is
before we get to the last flight.
So as to humanize her.
Well, it's a very human story.
Yeah.
Someday,
Not a fan.
she would say, I'll get bumped off. There's so much to do, so much fun here. I don't want to go, but...
Wow.
That was a quote.
I'm going to die sometime, but whatever.
Whatever. It's all right.
And so circumnavigating the globe was the last trip that she had was going to be her last trip to set records and stuff like that. She wasn't going to give up flying, but she was going to stop flying. She wasn't going to be trying to set any more records. This was supposed to be her last.
Phileas Fogg wanted to do that. If I recall, he took care of that.
I think.
Yeah, well, it took him 40 days though.
I think there was a loophole in that where Amelia kind of beat him.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sounds like a poop hole loophole to me.
It is a poop hole loophole.
Okay,
I don't know what that means.
Don't worry about it.
All right, so here's several more quotes. The first one being, "It's a very big ocean."
You'll know when I'm done with you.
It's a very big ocean, so much water.
That's accurate.
That's another quote.
That is accurate.
That is true.
It's about 78% of our planet is ocean.
And here's another quote. "Please don't be concerned. It just seems that I must try this flight. I've weighed it all carefully. With it behind me, life will be fuller and richer. I can be content. Afterward, it will be fun to grow old."
Oh.
Okay.
She would have been right.
Maybe she was right.
And then, when I go, she often said, I'd like best to go in my plane quickly.
Oh, no.
All right. So, talk about a fatalist.
Mm-hmm.
So, in May 1935, she was flying on a trip, first of its kind, over the Gulf of Mexico from Mexico City to New York City without stopping. No one had done that yet.
Yeah.
And so, while
Still a long trip.
That's a hell of a flight, yeah.
So while she was flying over the Gulf of Mexico, which is a huge body of water, she started looking down below her plane, and she started thinking, well, this plane that I'm flying only has one engine. If that engine gave out, I would have no backup. There's a lot of water down there. And she vowed at that point to get a plane with two engines.
Yeah, double engine plane.
Before she flew over any more water, she was going to get a twin-engine plane.
Yeah.
So that was in 1935.
Me and the Steve Miller Band, we're a big fan of jetliners, and so just the extra engines is really
okay.
You like to fly like an eagle into the future.
Mm-hmm.
So,
see.
Let it spirit carry me.
So her first experience with flying was as a child. She and her sister built a homemade roller coaster going off the roof of their garage.
Ballsy.
Wow.
And they made this kind of go-kart to go down it, and she ended up flying off of this thing and not killing herself, incidentally.
Yeah, that's good.
And she said it was like flying. I don't know if she got hurt, but it
not too horribly.
In 1907, she was at a Iowa State Fair in Des Moines.
She's 10 years old now?
She's 10 years old now. And an adult pointed out a biplane that was there at this state fair, and she looked over at it, and it looked like old wood and rusted metal. Right. And she had very little interest in this plane because she had just bought herself a hat that was made out of an inverted peach basket. And she was far more interested in this 15-cent hat than in this airplane.
Fuck that plane, I got a hat.
It's hard to imagine a time in which the skies were so unexplored.
I know. We had no idea what was up
there. Or like, the idea of moving easily through it.
Right.
So the next time she came across an airplane was in 1918 when she was 21. And she was, and it's around the time of the armistice of World War I.
Right.
So she was in Toronto, Canada at an exposition up there. And she went to this exposition with a friend. And so they had a
trip from Kansas.
Wow. Well, by this time she was actually living in Canada, working in hospitals. She worked in hospitals during World War I.
Oh, okay.
So she was actually up there with this friend, and that's where they were living and working and stuff. And so she and her friend went to this exposition, and there was World War I flying aces flying airplanes exhibiting. And every once in a while, they'd get bored and they'd buzz the crowd.
Sure.
So she and her friend were, and if you've never been around airplanes, that's kind of a scary
It's a thrill.
thing. Yeah, it's a thrill. It's like being on a roller coaster.
Right.
So she and her friend were actually standing in this open field when this pilot decided he was going to buzz them. So he swooped the plane down towards them, and her friend scrambled, ran away, and Amelia just stared at it.
Played chicken.
Right. I'm the winner.
And she said later on that she felt like that red plane was talking to her.
Oh, was it Snoopy? It was Snoopy.
It was Snoopy fighting the Red Baron.
Yeah.
Okay, so she but after this event, because she had worked in the hospitals during World War I, she felt like she had an affinity for medicine, and she enrolled in Columbia University in New York to become a doctor.
Okay.
I'm not. She was actually ahead of her time as far as women's suffrage and women's rights through her whole life, and her mother had raised her that way. Her father was an alcoholic, but her mother came from actually kind of a well-to-do family. Her grandfather had been a judge and things like that, and they lived in a number of different places as her father got jobs as a railroad attorney in different places. But then he couldn't hold on to the jobs because of his alcoholism.
Yeah.
So her mother never forced her to do like girl stuff. She let her just do whatever she felt like.
Be herself.
Wear peach baskets on her head.
Right.
Whatever you want to do, lady.
That's freedom right there.
So it never occurred to her that she shouldn't enroll to be a doctor. But she only spent 1 year at Columbia University because she couldn't stop thinking about airplanes.
Yeah.
So she
That's
went
with pizza.
She
that
went
is you with pizza.
She went to California on vacation, and while she was there, she started going to all of these air shows.
Yeah.
And at one of them, she finally met she came across this pilot who was like selling rides in his airplane, to take you up for a ride.
Sure.
And so I think it cost her $10 to fly with.
That's a lot of money back
then. Which back then was like $100 or a couple $100.
But it's also to do something that no one gets to do.
Right.
When there were no planes in the sky on a regular basis. Today we'll look at 3 of them if you're looking up.
Ron, you're just looking at chemtrails. That's what you care about.
So this pilot, Frank Hawks, who later on became famous, I don't know what for, but he became famous probably as a stunt pilot or something like that. He took her up in his plane. And she says in one of her books, because she wrote 4 books.
Wow.
I wonder where that.
Only 4 years old.
Right.
4 books.
So she said that at about 200 feet in the air, she knew she had to fly.
Yeah.
From this point on, it's like this is what
Nothing
she had to do.
there's nothing else other than this.
Yes.
This feeling.
So her mother helped her buy her first plane.
Good on you, Mom. Thanks.
Because her mother, when her grandparents died, they left money to her mother, but it was in a trust, because they didn't trust that her father wouldn't
use it on
because of alcoholism and stuff. Okay, so the first airplane she owned, the one that her mother helped her buy, was a secondhand bright yellow airplane with one motor, and it was so rough when it was running that her feet would fall asleep on the pedal to the
like when you're on a lawnmower.
It's called paresthesia.
Paresthesia.
Is that like anesthesia, but paresthesia is that?
Yeah.
What causes that with the vibrations?
It's well, I don't know. I guess with the vibrations, I don't know if it would just be blood flow, lack of blood flow to the nerves.
Yeah.
So.
But it was the pedal to the rudder, so it's not like she could take her foot off of it. She had to.
Have to use that.
So there were short flights involved. She took flying lessons from another female pilot.
Wow. That's great.
I don't have the pilot's name, but it was another female pilot that she took flying lessons from. She would lend out her airplane to other pilots doing other shows or to when she wasn't using it so that she wouldn't have to pay hangar fees.
Smart.
Because she couldn't afford the hangar fees.
Right.
Yeah.
But you can this for that, quid pro quo it.
So after her first year of owning this plane and flying it, the furthest she had gone was 40 miles. That was the longest trip she'd gone on, from 40 miles from Long Beach to Pasadena.
Oh, I bet that's a pretty flight, though.
Yeah.
You see a lot
Especially
of pretty
in that time
sights.
without all the air pollution.
Right.
But she was also, she was holding down various kinds of jobs to pay for this hobby of flying. Yeah. And she couldn't really afford gasoline without, her mother helping her.
Well, I'm sure.
Things don't change much, do they?
No, they absolutely don't.
So, at some point, she took a job in Boston. And so now she's living in Boston, and she's working at this place called the Dennison House. And it was at that time, it was one of America's oldest social settlements, whatever that means. That's what she called it in this book.
I do not know what that means.
And so she was doing games and doing classes with Chinese and Syrian neighborhood children. I think it was for immigrant children would come to this place, learn English, play games, and kind of assimilate.
There's a place in Louisville that goes out of Iroquois High School called Newcomer Academy. And when I was getting my teaching degree, I had to go there for a week or so and work with the kids. It was crazy. There's one classroom I was in that had people from Central Africa and Cuba and South Korea and all these kids for whom English isn't their first language, just to get a feel for what school is like.
That's a lovely idea, though. Yeah. That's a beautiful idea.
I think that's probably what this place was. So anyway, while she's working at this place in Boston, she gets a phone call at work from a guy asking her if she was interested in doing something dangerous. Because for some reason there was her name and her reputation out there as a pilot, so people knew, and she had been given offers before by people saying they wanted her to run bootleg liquor and stuff,
right.
And she turned those down because she didn't want anything to do with that. But so she was intrigued by this guy. Yeah, but she demanded references from him.
That's a good call.
Wow.
And so he gave her some references.
Hello.
And so she met the man that
dangerous.
I was wondering if
she was intrigued by his honesty. So she met the man.
Yeah.
She met the man, and he asked her if she would be interested in flying the Atlantic, which had never been done yet. So.
I know that flight.
So what he was. So
she'd rather fly what?
So she went to. She went to New York and met this guy, and she showed him her pilot's license, which was the first ever granted to an American woman by the FAI, which I think was the forerunner of the FAA.
So the woman who taught her how to fly didn't have that?
I don't know.
Or maybe if not from that organization or something.
Or maybe she was an American woman. She says American woman, and this is a quote. This is from Amelia's book.
She could have been a Canadian woman.
Or a Martian woman.
Or a Martian.
So
we don't judge.
But anyway, so the idea was this endeavor was being financed by a Mrs. Frederick Guest, who was financing these other guys who wanted to fly the Atlantic. And so because she was financing it, she was insisting that they take a woman along with them. So that's why they were looking for a woman, and because they knew that she had because they heard that she flew airplanes, they thought that maybe she would be
or she would be able to go on the flight and not be freaked out, I think. And so they didn't let her fly. Right. She was just a passenger. But anyway, the name of the airplane was Friendship, and they called it the Friendship, whatever. So anyway,
whatever, PR.
So
the real power was friendship.
Well, anyway, they were centered in Boston, and they're flying out of Boston Harbor.
There's no friendship in Boston.
No. But anyway,
what do you want, pal?
They flew the plane up to Newfoundland because Newfoundland's closer to Europe, so it's a shorter trip across the Atlantic.
And that's the point of come from away is when flights began going across that ocean, everyone landed in Canada.
Yeah. So the pilot of the flight was Bill Stultz, and the mechanic was Lou Gordon. And so they...
Oh, Lou.
Yep. And then Lou. She was the woman. The passenger.
That was her title?
No.
And that's the woman.
It sounds like Sherlock Holmes, Irene Adler. That's what he always called her, was the woman.
The woman.
Well, they didn't call her the woman, but that's, basically she was the passenger. They didn't need her. Those two would have flown without her, but they had the person giving them money said that they had to have a woman. So that's why she was there. So I
have skills, Lou. I have a name.
So they flew from Newfoundland to Barryport, Wales, and the journey took 20 hours and 40 minutes. They landed in the harbor because they were flying a seaplane.
Right.
And they tied off onto a buoy, but then they needed someone to bring them on shore because they're on a plane. They can't get on shore from this seaplane.
Yeah.
And so at one point, Amelia takes a towel and she waves to someone on shore, trying to get their attention, and the guy takes off his coat and waves back and then goes on his merry way.
That's how I would do it.
Hi! Hi, lady!
I used to take my pants off, though, probably back.
And wave them around, yeah.
So they tried for like an hour to get people's attention to come out and get them in a boat. And it takes them like an hour before they finally get somebody to come out to their plane. Even though, at this point, no one had flown across the Atlantic yet. So
where did this plane come from?
Right.
I'll say this, I just a personal policy, like I always try to be helpful. There have been times I've picked up hitchhikers and taken people where they need to be, and if I can be of assistance and I'm not in too big of a hurry.
Yeah.
But personal policy, I don't pick up people named Lou.
No.
I thought it was Gary.
No,
Gary, I will take anyone who wants to go.
I don't
but
pick
Lou,
up Gary.
I'm like, hey,
Gary.
The woman can come with me. Lou, you're
right. Lou, you stay with the plane. I'm taking Amelia with me.
So after this flight, while she was in England, it turned out to be a great thing for her because she went to London. They met people. They met famous people. So in London, she met this woman, this lady Mary Heath, who was an Irish woman flyer who had just made a record flight from London to Cape Town, Africa.
Wow, South Africa.
That's a hell of a
or Cape Town. So maybe it wasn't South Africa. Maybe it was. Anyways, Cape Town, where it could be England.
It was far away.
As far away, it was a record because it's early.
Because there were no records back then.
Right, exactly.
Like, nobody flew.
So anyway,
so 50 minutes is a record.
And boy, are my arms tired.
And so,
thank you. Good night, everybody.
Amelia bought her plane.
She bought her plane.
She bought Lady Mary Heath's plane.
Oh, good on you, Mary Heath.
Now the plane, it was a small plane, and the wings folded up, which made it easy for her to store in her garage.
In her garage. Well, it fits nicely in a tight space.
It was light enough that she could pick up the tail of the plane and move it around and point it on the field. So it was ideal for a woman who can't afford hangar fees and stuff like that to be able to.
Was it a seaplane like with the pontoons, or just
no? This was a regular land plane. Okay. So
it was Cape Town, South Africa.
Was it? Wow,
God,
that was her flight.
That is a hell of a long flight.
Well, it took her 3 months.
Oh, so it wasn't.
Okay. So
it wasn't a straight flight.
It wouldn't happen. No.
Okay.
It was a small open cockpit aircraft.
Yeah,
that was what she flew.
Oh, how pretty though to be in an open air aircraft.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
looking over the
pretty until the wind, depending on what temperature it is.
She was known as Britain's Lady Lindy. After Lindbergh.
Oh,
Britain's equivalent of Lindbergh.
She was a lovely gal.
So it was this trip across the Atlantic that gave Amelia the opportunities to do the things that she later did. If she hadn't got that phone call, she probably would never have done any of these things.
No, absolutely.
So this is a quote from Amelia. After the pleasant accident of being the first woman to cross the Atlantic by air, I was launched into a life full of interest. Aviation offered such fun as crossing the continent in planes large and small, trying the whirling rotors of an autogyro, making record flights.
With these activities came opportunity to know women everywhere who shared my conviction that there is so much women can do in the modern world and should be permitted to do irrespective of their sex. Probably my greatest satisfaction was to indicate by example now and then that women can sometimes do things themselves if given the chance.
Oh, yeah.
So in 1928...
It's so hard to... I can't put my mind around living in a time when... And I guess I still live in a time when people think certain people can't do things because of who they are.
Yeah. Right.
I can't comprehend looking at someone that way. And thinking you can't because you are you.
For that time period, she was such a revolutionary.
Yeah. Whether it's gender or race, just that the fact that there are people who say because you are this,
right,
you are less.
Yep. Right. I love that Amelia is one of those people that proved them all wrong at that time and said, "I can do what you can do.
Better.
Anything you can do, I can do better.
Right.
I can do anything better than you.
Yes, you can.
No, you can't.
Wait,
what?
Wait a second.
What's happening right now?
So in 1928, excuse me, she set out to fly the continent of, North America. At that time, I'm going to be going into a lot of quotes because a lot of these quotes are from her final book, which is The Last Flight, which she wrote while she was preparing and going through the final flight. Yeah. It goes up all the way until she disappeared because she would write these things while she was flying or at each stop, and then she would mail them or send them back because of the book deal was part. Well, writing a book was part of the deal for getting funding for this flight in the first place.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah.
So
I thought it's prescient that she named that last book "See Ya Suckers."
See ya, suckers.
Anyway.
Going to Fiji.
Yeah.
So here's going into a quote
from her. Yeah.
At that time, I was full of missionary zeal for the cause of aviation. I refused to wear the high-bred aviation togs of the moment. Instead, I simply wore a dress or suit. I carried no chute, and instead of a helmet, used a close-fitting hat. I stepped into the airplane with as much nonchalance as I could muster, hoping that onlookers would be persuaded that flying was nothing more than an everyday occurrence. I refused even to wear goggles, obviously. However, I put them on as I taxied to the end of the field and wore them while flying, being sure to take them off shortly after I landed.
So
she wore them.
She wore them, but she didn't want people to see her wearing them.
Okay.
Because she didn't want people to think that this was a... No, it was. She was trying to make this seem like an everyday occurrence.
Right, like it was no big deal.
Special.
Like it is today, where it's no big deal.
Right.
You got a plane ride? Okay.
The biggest deal in the plane ride...
She wore a leather hat.
The biggest deal in the plane ride is getting to the plane.
Right.
Just getting through all the customs.
That's the nightmare.
Taking your shoes off and loophole.
So in 1929, there was
I don't know what this is.
In 1929, there was a woman's derby, a flying derby from California to Cleveland, and Amelia Earhart, and she traded in the Lady Mary Heath's plane for a used Lockheed Vega for the race, which was a single problem.
Is it upgrade, I assume?
It's an upgrade, and it's an enclosed plane.
Oh, that's
It's a race?
It's a race.
It's not like a stunt show or
it's a derby.
Okay.
So it's
like the Pinewood derbies you do every year.
Well, yeah. I do those. Yeah. I ride my Pinewood Derby too into glory.
Which is strange.
So I crossed the continent.
Right.
She said, I crossed the continent again from New York to California to stop at the Lockheed factory. I thought possibly there might be a few adjustments necessary before I entered the race. There I met the great Wiley Post for the first time.
Wiley Post.
Wiley Post had not then had his vision of stratosphere flying and was simply a routine check pilot in the employ of Lockheed Company.
He said, girls don't fly. What are you doing here?
It fell to him to take my airplane up for a test. Having circled the field once, he came down and proceeded to tell everyone within earshot that my lovely airplane was the foulest he had ever flown. Of course, the worse he made the plane, the better the pilot became. Yeah. The fact that I should have been able to herd such a hopeless piece of mechanism across the continent successfully was the one bright spot in the ensuing half hour. Finally, Lockheed officials were so impressed by my prowess, or sorry for me, that they traded me a brand new plane. The clunk was never flown again.
Holy cow, they gave her a new plane.
She flew this horrible plane long distances in such an impressive way. Yeah. Everyone's like, well, what can she do with this?
Why don't you give this lady a plane? Now, she obviously knows how to fly.
Remember the guy who called her in Boston to see if she wanted to fly across
do you want to do something dangerous?
In 1931, she married him.
Oh, it was Roy Harley.
It was Roy Harley. Amelia, I've been thinking we ought to get married.
It was George Palmer Putnam.
Putnam. No, I don't like it.
Okay.
Yeah.
By the spring of
Not a fan.
1932, she was ready to attempt a solo flight across the Atlantic. Because her first flight across the Atlantic was, she's moving quickly.
She was with a guy.
She's moving quickly. Well,
Well, here's the thing, though. The first flight we heard of going across the Atlantic wasn't a solo flight.
Yeah.
No.
Do you know if solo flights had happened by then?
I think Lindbergh was the first to fly solo across the Atlantic. But because she hadn't done any flying on the first, she was just a passenger.
Right.
She vowed that she was going to fly across.
Well, hell yeah, she can do anything a man can do. That's what she's proving.
And honestly, get rid of Lou, it'll probably be better anyway.
Yeah.
Lou's kind of a dick.
Looking back, there are less cheering recollections of that night over the Atlantic. Of seeing, for instance, the flames lick through the exhaust collector ring and wondering, in a detached way, whether one would prefer drowning to incineration.
She was a morbid lady.
Let me stop you right there. Would you prefer drowning or incineration?
Drowning.
Incineration.
Really? I think that would hurt worse.
No,
of the 5 hours,
die from suffocation.
Of the 5 hours of
water freaks me. I'm not afraid of swimming, but like the idea of drowning.
Yeah, but you get that euphoria once that fills up your lungs. And I'm okay with that.
How do you know that?
I've heard that.
I feel
From
like if
people
I'm
who haven't drowned.
From
If
people
I'm
who
drowning,
survive drowning.
If
that
I'm
you
drowning,
reach a point where you reach
I
a
know
euphoria.
the death is coming. I feel like incineration, I don't have time to think death is coming.
See, it's the pain of going through. And so, how slow is the burning? Like, how quickly is it immediate?
It's going to rip the oxygen from your lungs, I would think.
Immediately.
I mean, not immediately.
Okay, then
you're
that's
screaming.
not.
You're definitely going to be screaming.
I don't want to burn myself with a match, much less sit there long enough to go, God, I hope I pass out soon.
Let's just say that both are terrible, and I'm moving on with my story.
Deckheads weigh in.
Of the 5 hours of storm during Black Midnight, when I kept right side up by instruments alone, buffeted about as I never was before. Of much beside, not the least, the feeling of fine loneliness and of realization that the machine I rode was doing its best and required for me the best I had.
Now, I'm sure you guys have driven in intense winds.
Yeah.
Where the vehicles
I hate that.
I was driving down to Kentucky Lake once, taking our youth group down there, and it was a 15-passenger van, and it took everything I had to hold it straight.
Those are terrifying on a real windy day.
Now, imagine doing that in an airplane.
Yep.
You're not grounded. I can't imagine what that would be like. That's very impressive. That anyone could, but much less at that time.
Yeah. And one further fact of the flight, which I've not set down in words before, I carried a barograph, an instrument which records on a disc that course of the plane, its rate of ascent and descent, its levels of flight, and all coordinated with clock time. My telltale disc could tell a tale. At one point, it recorded an almost vertical drop of 3,000 feet.
Oh!
It started at an altitude of something over 3,000 feet and ended, something above the water.
Oh, God!
That happened when the plane suddenly iced up and went into a spin. How long we spun, I do not know.
Right over the ocean.
Yep.
Oh.
A vertical drop somewhere. It stopped somewhere above the water.
Yeah. She was at 3,000 feet, and she dropped 3,000 feet.
Spinning.
Weightless, yes. I'm sure, almost.
Near Londonderry, after scaring most of the cows in the neighborhood, I pulled up in a farmer's backyard. 3 people came out to see what was in the airplane. I pushed the hatch back and stuck out my head. Not knowing the proper phrase for the situation, I simply said, I'm from America.
That probably worked at the time. I don't think it worked anymore.
No, it wouldn't.
It made no impression whatsoever on the reception committee.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Oh, it's one of those people.
On January 11th, 1935, she flew from Honolulu to Oakland, California.
I feel like if I'd never been to Honolulu and I flew to Honolulu, I'd just stay in Honolulu.
Oh, yeah, I'm not coming back.
She took a ship to Honolulu and flew back. This was a flight that hadn't been done.
Oh.
Makes sense. Pacific Islands.
Yeah.
So I must say something about the plane, which had been my companion aloft for so many flying hours. It was a craft to delight the eye, its wings and fuselage painted red with gold stripes down the side. Possibly it may have seemed a trifle gaudy on the ground, but I am sure it looked lovely against one of those white clouds. It was a closed plane. I drive a closed car and fly a closed plane. I don't like to be mussed up. Further, the added comfort of a closed plane very definitely lessens fatigue, and fatigue must be considered when one is preparing for a long flight.
I didn't see that.
The Vega normally carries 6 passengers and the pilot. The passengers in the rear, the pilot in the front perched in the cockpit overlooking the motor with its 500 horses. The 6 passenger seats had been replaced by large fuel tanks capable of carrying 520 gallons of gasoline. There are no service stations between Honolulu and the United States.
How do you think they fit all those horses in there?
Yeah.
They have a carriage.
I think they had to shrink them down.
With like straps.
Shrinking.
My
shrinking,
cockpit
right.
was a very cozy little cubbyhole. I sat on a cushion just large enough for me. On the right-hand side of the seat was a large black box, the radio.
The black box. Why would they make the whole plane out of the black box? That's
With the dials on top so I could reach them easily. On the left was a large compass and 2 pump handles. Pumps which enabled me to change fuel from one set of tanks to the other. Some of the fuel was carried in the wing, which is the normal position in commercial craft, and some in the cabin tanks. In case my motor-driven pump should fail, I could still keep going by using the hand system. I have had to pump as long as 6 hours on occasion, which is pretty tiring, but it is well worth having that emergency system.
Well, not dying. Yeah.
I'm a fan.
Yeah.
I would pump for 6 hours to not crash into the ocean.
Right.
I would like to think I would. In a little cupboard in the wing to the right, I carried provisions. I don't drink tea or coffee, so I had none with me. On the Atlantic flight, I had a thermos bottle of hot soup, but it did not work out very well. So from Honolulu, I carried a thermos bottle of hot chocolate. Then I had malted milk tablets, sweet chocolate, tomato juice, and water.
That's terrible.
One of the Army officers' wives thought I was didn't have enough food, and for some reason it stops there. But anyway, they made her a picnic basket, which she didn't eat on the flight.
I don't like Whoppers as a candy.
No, I do not at
Malted milk
all.
balls.
Not at all.
Oh, I love malted milk balls. After that,
Of course you do, Jeff.
Of course I do. So after that, the next thing was the Mexican flight that we started out with.
Mexico to New York?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
She was invited to do this flight by the Mexican government. So
Wow, that's awesome.
So on April 19th, 1935, she flew from Burbank to Mexico City, which is 1,700 miles away. She got lost and landed in a dry lake bed. The locals indicated to her through sign language how to get to Mexico City, another 50 miles away. So then she had to take off from this lake bed and fly to Mexico. The ensuing days were a kaleidoscope of things done and seen and hospitable people met. Fun in Mexico would be an appropriate title. President Lázaro Cárdenas graciously extended official greetings and privileges. We barged through the flower-laden floating gardens of
Xochimilco?
Yeah, that.
Xomilco.
Some words starting with an X.
Yes.
A bucolic tropic Venice on the fringe of the capital. We saw the bass game.
Yeah.
No, you don't. JLI, a fast and furious glorified squash, and a Charo Fiesta, which is to say...
Highlight.
Yeah, Highlight. Okay.
Yeah, it's a crazy
That's a game,
It's a
isn't it?
crazy game.
And
And basically you have the disc and you fling it like
Oh,
hundreds of
that's
miles
what
per hour.
highlight is. I never knew.
And a Charo Fiesta, which is to say a cowboy exhibition, demonstrating that superb horsemanship is the same art the world over, needing, like music, no interpretation. Unfortunately, opportunity lacked to discuss with women, as I would have liked to, their strivings and ambitions. What law and tradition permit them to do outside the home, I am uncertain. While I met only sheltered women among the well-to-do, I saw many worn with the hard labor of farm life, and briefly touched a few groups of self-supporting city women workers.
Which I will say is just as impressive as flying. Like if you,
Yeah,
in that time, working hard and supporting a family, it's pretty impressive too.
Yeah.
I saw enough of the spirit of the New Mexico, however, to want to know more of what reforms the new order holds for its women. I, for one, hope for the day when women will know no restrictions because of sex, but will be individuals free to live their lives as men are free, irrespective of the continent or the country where they happen to live.
Beautiful sentiment.
Yeah.
At a concert given in my honor, I admired the cowboy regalia worn by the musicians. Forthwith, to my embarrassment and pleasure, I found that Secretary of State Porteskill had ordered that I should have such a one for myself. This outfit is as traditional as the pink coat of the British huntsman or the kilts of the Highlander. Mine, as delivered some days later, is a formal creation of blue and silver, topped by a picturesque sombrero, heavy with corresponding trimmings. How such a colorful costume may be adapted to flying is a sartorial problem I never mastered.
Ron actually is wearing a Highlander kilt right now.
Yeah, he always does.
And a sombrero.
Yeah.
That's how he rolls.
In the opposite
That's right.
places of where you
That's
think
how old Krusty Bones
Absolutely.
rolls. In Mexico,
Old Krusty Bones.
so Mexico City sits at an altitude of 8,000 feet above sea level, and they had to create a 3-mile runway for her to take off because her plane needed so much extra fuel to get to New York City.
Yeah.
So in order to do this,
She had to build up so much momentum.
they had to build one on the dry lake bed that surrounds that Mexico City is built on.
How quickly did they do that?
I don't know.
3 miles?
It's 3 miles. That's a long
3 miles of runway. Good Lord!
In the middle
because
of
the air is so thin.
Yeah.
That to get that much lift, for the weight that she had to carry for all the fuel that she needed for a plane, she needed that much
forward momentum.
Yep.
Wow.
So she took off from Mexico City a few minutes after 6 a.m. and landed in Newark, New Jersey at 10:30 p.m., 2,185 miles north.
Oh, man.
16 and a half hours?
Yeah. All in all, the flight was marked by a delightful precision. Everything worked as it should. Its only exciting moments followed my landing in Newark when the crowd overflowed the field. In due course, I was rescued from my plane by husky policemen, one of whom, in the ensuing melee, took possession of my right arm and another of my left leg.
It's weird they let dogs be policemen in New Jersey.
I know, it's weird, isn't it?
Husky policemen.
Their plan was to get me to the shelter of a nearby police car, but with the best of intentions, their execution lacked coordination. For the arm holder started to go one way, while he who clasped my leg set out in the opposite direction.
He who clasped my leg.
Yeah. Why is he clasping her leg,
I don't know why, but that's my Indian name.
Let me escort you.
Crusty Bones and he who clasped my leg.
Right.
The result provided the victim with a fleeting taste of the tortures of the rack. But at that, it was fine to be home again.
Man, she writes so well.
She's a really fantastic writer.
Wow.
So circumnavigating the world was her next goal.
Yeah.
So this is it.
Yeah.
This is the
train. What else is there after you?
So she originally got the idea while she was flying from Honolulu to Oakland.
I guess trying across, like circumnavigating the other direction was pretty crazy.
And once she did,
that would be insane.
And so once she flew from, that would be insane.
It might be too cold to do it.
I'm thinking.
Well, the planes weren't heated or air conditioned back then.
Right.
Well, I even mean for the mechanics of the plane.
Oh, that's true too. Yeah. Anyway, but so she got the idea to circumnavigate during her flight from Honolulu to Oakland, and she knew she needed a different plane, a twin-engine plane, from her flight from Mexico to New York City.
Okay. Newark, New Jersey.
Yeah, New York, same difference.
Right,
it's pretty impressive.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not all the way to New York.
At this time,
at
this time, she was a faculty member at Purdue University.
Oh wow!
Even though she still lived in California, she was associated with the school. She'd come and do flight. She would teach some flying stuff, and she also she was very interested in what airplane flying would do to human beings for extended times in the air.
To brag about Indiana for a little bit, Purdue University is an incredible technical university in engineering. It's a great school.
I had no idea they would teach a course like that.
And also Lafayette, Indiana is where the Last Dog in Suds is. So that's where Purdue University is.
Just north of Indiana.
It was also a co-ed university. It had 6,000 students at the time. 1,000 of them were women.
Yeah.
That's outstanding. A progressive university.
1930s.
Right. Yeah. And it had its own landing field for airplanes.
Are you kidding me?
I'm not kidding you.
Indiana, man. It's the place to be.
That's impressive. That's quite impressive.
So we're going into another quote. The problems and opportunities of these girls were quite as much as my concern as aviation matters. Perhaps I have something of a chip on my shoulder when it comes to modern feminine education. Often youngsters are sadly miscast. I have known girls who should be tinkering with mechanical things instead of making dresses, and boys who would do better at cooking than engineering.
Absolutely.
One of my favorite phobias is that girls, especially those whose tastes aren't routine, often don't get a fair break. The situation is not new. It has come down through the generations, and an inheritance of old age customs which preceded the corollary that women are bred to timidity. I have harbored a very special pet ambition. Among my other somewhat suppressed desires, it is classified under the letter T. The imaginary file card reads, tinkering for girls only. The plan is to endow a catch-as-catch-can machine shop where girls may tinker to their heart's content with motors, lathes, jigsaws, gadgets, and diverse hickeys of their own creation, where they may sprawl on their back, peering up into the innards of the engines, and likely as not get oil in their hair, where they can make things and have the fun of finding out how things are made, why engines perk, clocks tick, radios yowl, and something of the everyday mechanical marvels which, given the chance, many of them would master quite as well as Brother Bill. And emerge somewhere in the scale between grease monkeys and inventors, or negatively, with at least their lack of aptitude revealed.
Well, we'll find out they suck at this.
Right.
But here's one thing.
I'm in love with Amelia Earhart.
I know, she's great.
I know,
one thing I like, from the time when I was in school to being a teacher now, the number of science teachers that are women has increased so much. Like, I had one female science teacher when I was a kid. Two, but one of them was pregnant, so she missed almost the entire school year.
Right.
But like now, both faculties I've worked for, the majority of the science department is women.
Absolutely.
Which is great because that is predominantly math and science. You don't think women do that,
Right.
but
But
I
they
love
do.
students.
They're adept at it.
Most of my best students have been female.
Yeah.
Because they're just so diligent. It's wonderful. I love how that is something that has changed, and her vision was the pioneering one.
Oh, I know, absolutely. So one day, the president of Purdue University, and his name was Edward C. Elliott, asked her husband what some of her goals were, and he told the president of the Purdue University that she wanted a twin-engine plane. So he went out and got her one with Purdue. He bought her one through the Purdue Research Foundation.
Oh, damn.
Now,
right.
Amelia,
boil her up.
She earned it.
So Amelia had intended to do a year's research with the plane and then try to circumnavigate the world with it. Yeah. But circumstances changed, and so she decided to circumnavigate the globe first.
Yeah.
Before the research?
Right.
Well, do the research as she's done. Her research was to like spend a long time in the air with other people and see what it did to their bodies and that kind of research. My flying laboratory became equipped with all that is modern in instruments. It was a Sperry gyro pilot, an automatic device which actually flies the ship unaided.
The 1930s.
There is a Bendix radio direction finder which points the way to any selected broadcasting station within its range. There's the finest two-way voice and code Western electric communication equipment, in whose installation the Bell Laboratories, under the aegis of Dr. Frank B. Jewett, cooperated. The plane had two motors, retractable landing gear, a cruising speed of 180 miles per hour, with a top speed that exceeded 200 miles per hour.
So, I just want to point out right now, that's amazing, and it's incredible that happens, but there is a bird on our planet that can fly that fast. A bird that can fly that fast. The peregrine falcon can dive at 200 miles an hour.
I had no idea. 200 miles an hour.
Well, passenger airlines fly much faster than 200 miles per hour.
Obviously now.
Yeah,
but I just think, like,
they're not a bird.
This is the top speed, and it's amazing she got to fly something so modern, but the natural world was at that point, too.
Well, it goes to show just how new flying still was at this point.
Yeah, and how far technology's come even in the last 80 years.
Now, she took out the passenger seats in the passenger compartment and added
reduce weight.
and she added gas tanks.
Oh, okay. Use the space better.
Giving the plane the fuel capacity of 1,115 gallons.
That's not too shabby.
The plane had a cruising radius of 4,000 miles.
Goodness.
Now, the preparations for the circumnavigation took months, and her idea was to fly around to circumnavigate the Earth, not at its narrowest point, but at the equator.
Yeah.
Or as close to the equator as she could do. It took weeks to get all the maps and charts. Then courses had to be laid out. She had to set up where to land and where to refuel.
So you can land.
Yeah, you have to plot.
You can't
this thing
refuel
out.
anywhere.
Right. She had to make sure there was someplace to land. She had to preset gasoline there.
Yeah.
She had to preset mechanical parts for repairs.
Oh, yeah.
She
had to prepare it.
She had to do all this stuff.
Yeah.
All these logistics that exist now didn't exist then.
No.
And part of how she did this was by Pan Am let her use a lot of their facilities where they were flying, and also Standard Oil had a lot of facilities around the world that she was using. Yeah, we're gonna go way over time. Yeah. So here's a quote of hers. "The time to worry," she declared, "is 3 months before flight. Decide then whether or not the goal is worth the risks involved. If it is, stop worrying. To worry is to add another hazard. It retards reactions, makes one unfit." Hamlet, she added with an infectious grin, would have been a bad aviator. He worried too much.
She even knows Hamlet.
Yeah, she was well read.
All right. So, the proposed route, as originally laid out, was from Auckland to Honolulu, then to Port Darwin in North Australia via New Guinea, and then going around the Earth that direction to go west. Okay. So, she decided that on her circumnavigating, she wanted someone to go with her. She wanted a navigator to go with her, so she wouldn't be alone.
She could focus on flying, and he could focus on direction.
So she asked Captain Henry Manning to be her navigator, and he was a Navy captain, and then he agreed to do it. When people asked her why she wanted to circumnavigate the world, her reply was, "Because I wanted to."
Yeah, why not?
And because she has proven she can do what she wants.
Yep. Then, too, there was my belief that now and then women should do for themselves what men have already done.
and occasionally what men have not done, thereby establishing themselves as persons and perhaps encouraging other women toward greater independence of thought and action. Some such consideration was a contributing reason for my wanting to do what I so much wanted to do. So on March 17th, 1937, she took off from Oakland to Honolulu with a crew of 4, including herself. With her were Captain Harry Manning and Fred Noonan doing the navigation, and Paul Mance, who was another pilot, who was basically hitching a ride to Honolulu to beat his fiancée, who was traveling by ship to Hawaii.
So she's just giving a ride.
Yeah, just hitching a ride.
So they got to Honolulu without any problems they were leaving Mance there. So the 3 of them, when they were leaving Honolulu to continue on their trip,
Australia.
They're heading to Australia via New Guinea.
Yeah,
Pacific Islands.
They their tire blows on takeoff, breaking the landing gear and damaging one of the wings of the airplane.
Oh shit!
So they have to bring the plane and the crew back to Oakland by ship.
Oh hell!
So
that's disappointing.
So now they're delayed. So to repair they have to repair the plane.
Oh.
And they know they're going to be delayed like 3 months now from their original plan, which changes the season and the weather and all these places she was planning on stopping and had made arrangements for and did all the studying of the maps for.
It changes everything.
So it changes everything. So they have to replan the trip. And so in the replanning, they realized that it'd be safer now to go east instead of going west.
Sure.
Yeah, all right.
And what it also did was, after the plane had been repaired, by going east first, it gave them the United States to cross where they could still land and make mechanical repairs if there were problems with the plane.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I'm starting to skip stuff.
Okay.
Okay.
Just another 30 pages to go.
You make it sound like a bad thing.
No, it's fine.
All right, and they had to do a whole bunch of things, such as even get permission from various countries to land.
Yeah, you'd
and
have
stuff
to.
like that.
I mean, air rights are an important thing.
Right.
Yeah, even back then. You can't just invade someone's space without...
I usually do.
Well,
it doesn't always work out.
You don't want to do that in Iran, though.
So
you do, don't you?
Maybe you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So between the Honolulu mishap and when they left again, Captain Manning had to return to his Navy job
because he had put his time in. He had a certain time limit.
She's by herself.
So it's just her and Fred Noonan.
Okay. Well, at least there's somebody with her.
Yeah. So the 2 of them are doing this now.
I thought he was getting engaged in
that was
in Honolulu.
That was the pilot's
and Mance or whatever.
Oh, okay. Okay. So this guy he still has a job.
There were the 3 that were going to be there, and then the extra guy who was just
okay.
So on May 19th,
he was the other pilot. This was the other pilot because Manning was going to be the navigator.
Right.
So she still has another pilot with her. Somebody who knows what they're doing.
He can fly, but he's an experienced Pan Am navigator.
I think to have a navigator. Well, then she's not missing a whole lot.
No. He's a navigator. He's her navigator. Many of the places they're going to fly, he's never been. But some of the places that they're flying, he has been.
He knows how to read the instruments more than,
maps and,
so that she doesn't have to.
He knows how to
so on May 19th...
over there.
Okay, on May 19th, the repaired plane comes out of the factory where it's been getting fixed and stuff like that. 2 days later, they flew it to Oakland. At that time, we had made no announcement, or they left Oakland. At that time, we made no announcement of my decision to reverse the direction of the flight. It seemed sensible to slip away as quietly as we could. While I was actually heading for Miami with hope of keeping on from there eastward, technically the journey from Burbank across the country was a shakedown flight. If difficulties developed, we would bring the ship back to Lockheed Plant for further adjustments. So they didn't announce they were starting the journey. They just started the journey and to see if the plane was still working, and
so
they would continue on.
Yeah.
So on May 21st, they flew to Tucson.
Yeah.
Okay, so Arizona from Oakland.
Then from Tucson, the next day they flew to New Orleans, and then from New Orleans they flew to Miami, and then they spent about a week in Miami making more repairs on the plane, fixing things up before they headed out.
Now, are they heading from Miami on a transatlantic, or are they heading to Newfoundland?
No, they're going towards the equator because she wants to circumnavigate around the equator.
So Africa.
Okay, so they left Miami on June 1st, 1937 at 5:56 a.m. Before leaving, a broken thermocoupler had to be resoldered. She kissed her husband goodbye, and the first leg of the flight took them to San Juan, Puerto Rico.
And one of the ways that they kept track of the position is Fred Noonan watched the islands below looking for lighthouses by which he could check their course and speed. And so that's how he was navigating at that point.
Yeah.
While they were in San Juan, they stayed with a female pilot who lived on the island by the name of Miss Clara Livingston, and she had a 16,000-acre plantation.
Ooh.
Wow.
This is a quote. A great advantage in visiting a pilot is knowing that one's host comprehends a pilot's needs, which, when much flying lies ahead, are mostly negative. By which I mean not having things done for one, and instead being allowed to do nothing, which sounds involved, but perhaps it isn't. We wanted quiet and sleep. When politely possible, it was helpful to avoid functions and people, even the pleasantest
I feel that
people.
way in general.
For meeting and talking to them adds immeasurably to the fatigue factor, nervous and physical. Okay. The second day, they wanted to fly to Paramaribo in the Dutch New Guinea. They ended up stopping in Carapito, Venezuela. This was because there was construction at the airport, so they couldn't take as much fuel as they needed in order to lift off. So they had to land at a different airport. On June 3rd, they left Carapito, and they flew over jungle. This is her description of flying over jungle.
Yeah.
We flew over jungles to the coast, and then played hide and seek with showers until I decided I had better forego the scenery, such as it was, and climb up through the clouds into fair weather. An altitude of 8,000 feet topped all but the highest woolly pinnacles. In such a maneuver lies
among the mountains.
Such a maneuver lies a recurrent delight of flying. Often one can find the weather wanted at one level or another. As on this and many other days, the pilot sees the rain slant against the land below. Horizontally, distant views are blotted out. Vertically, clouds droop to shroud the shoulders of mountains or weep upon the jungle plain. But how many of the earthbound realize the relative nearness of sunlight above the cloud covering? How many know that perhaps only 3,000 feet above the gray dark world, my plane, if I will it, may emerge into sunlight over a billowy sea of clouds stretching away into blue infinity.
It's beautiful. That's metaphorical right there.
It's a lovely description.
The clouds are covering you, and it's dark down here, but the sun's still there.
Yeah.
Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not up there.
Oh, that's amazing.
I expected to find only a meager clearing, and I felt I might have to sit down suddenly. This was when she was flying into
Carlito in Venezuela.
This was the next stop after that. In a matter of minutes, the field, such a pleasant surprise. No makeshift airport this, but one of the best natural landing areas I have ever seen, where everything was possible, was prepared for our arrival with what one is apt to set down appreciatively as characteristic Dutch thoroughness.
So Dutch candies where she's
Yeah.
going.
Yeah.
An orange windsock flew from a pole. Strips of white cloth marked the best section for landing. As soon as we came into view, a bonfire was touched off to show the wind direction, and a man waved a white flag to guide us in. Zandery is the field's name, which means sandy. As far as I could see, it's the only place of the kind for miles.
Ron's nickname right there.
So she was flying over.
Venezuela?
So she was flying through all this jungle, and then suddenly it opens up into this.
Natural landing strip.
Cool is that? How goddamn cool.
Okay. I feel like I should start skipping stuff.
Or is this a two-parter?
It could be a two-parter.
It might be.
2 parts.
Well, let's go a little bit longer and see how far we're at. In addition to an air navigator, now she's talking about Noonan. In addition to being an air navigator, he is a Master Mariner Unlimited, and for some quaint reason, he also holds a first-class pilot's license on the Mississippi River. In his diversified 20-odd years of nautical knocking about, he rounded Cape Horn 7 times, thrice on a windjammer and 4 times on steamships. At the age of 15, for no particularly good reason except that he wanted to, Fred left home to go to sea. During the World War, he served on a munitions carrier between New York and England. Later in the British Navy, was on 3 ships which were torpedoed.
I was going to say, going in the Atlantic in World War is not a safe place to be.
No.
The next day, they flew 1,330 miles to Fortaleza, Brazil.
Okay, so now they're on the east coast of South America.
I'm going to skip a few things. They spent an extra day there tuning up the airplane, doing some housekeeping inside, and making small repairs. They were using Pan Am facilities there and most places, and Pan Am mechanics were happy to work on their plane. The hotel people naively put Fred Noonan and me in the same room. They were a bit surprised when we both countermanded the arrangements. For a female to be traveling as I do, evidently, is a matter of puzzlement to her sheltered sisters hereabout. Yeah. Not to mention the males. I'm stared at in the streets. I feel they think, oh, well, she's an American, and they're all crazy.
Not wrong there.
No, sir.
My one suitcase supposedly carried everything I could need on the world flight, but of necessity, it didn't contain my many duplications. My wardrobe included 5 shirts, 2 pairs of slacks, a change of shoes, a light working coverall, and a thick weightless raincoat, plus the minimum of toilet articles. And a sun helmet. Neither Fred nor I have a coat, but soundly lectured by tropical experts wise in the ways of sunstroke, we each started with 1 sun hat, to which others as gifts were added seemingly at each port of call.
Nice.
The next day they flew 270 miles to Natal, Brazil.
Okay.
They flew to Natal instead of on to Africa because the fuel meter gave out.
Okay.
Oh, geez.
So they don't have much fuel they have. That's
Right.
fine.
They left at 4:50 a.m. and arrived at 6:55 a.m. and had the whole day ahead of them. Mm-hmm. On June 7th, they arrived in Africa.
Wow.
That day, they left at 3:15 a.m. in the morning. The longest runway, which has lights, was unavailable because a perverse wind blew exactly across it. So I used the secondary runway, whose surface is of grass. In the dark, it was difficult even to find it.
I'm sure.
So Fred and I tramped its length with flashlights to learn what we could and establish something in the way of guiding landmarks, however shadowy.
Wow.
Oh.
Nearly all the way, headwinds prevailed. I dare say that they averaged 20 miles an hour for the first half of the distance. Then came a stretch of doldrums, a period of clear skies, and next an area of low, ragged clouds strewn all about the sky, and the heaviest rain I ever saw. The heavens fairly opened. Tons of water descended, a buffeting weight bearing so heavily on the ship I could almost feel it. Fortunately, that was long after daylight. The water splashed down against the glass of my cockpit. A soiled emulsion mixed with oil splattering from the propellers. So the water on her windshield is brown and oily. The trip took 13 hours and 12 minutes. They landed in St. Louis, Senegal.
It's Northern Africa.
Yeah. From St. Louis, they hopped to Dakar, which was the original target. Dakar sits on the peninsula of Cape Verde, the most westerly point in Africa.
Okay.
So they were...
Maybe Senegal's western, maybe I was thinking of Tunisia.
It's the capital of French West Africa. Mm-hmm. These are all the way things are named then.
They're colonies.
Well,
they're all colonies.
All these places still exist.
France, Dutch.
Yeah. But their names, some names of some of these countries are different because, they're no longer colonial.
They belong to the indigenous people again.
Right.
There's still a lot of French in Africa, though. Especially northwestern Africa has a lot of French.
Well,
all right. I think I'm going to keep going. So our journey, then they flew, from there they flew to Niamey?
Naime?
Yeah, Niamey.
Niamey, looks like.
Niamey.
And then the next stop was Gao French, GAO French, Sudan.
We'll take it.
Sudan. Okay, Sudan's northeastern Africa.
So now they're crossing North Africa.
One of the largest countries in Africa is Sudan.
And Africa's a wide continent, too.
Oh, yeah.
In our hasty visit at the beginning and the end of Gao, for us, was the airport. We wanted the keys of no city so long as the hangar doors were open and the ground crew ready. There they refueled. There were quantities of fuel waiting for them. The next stop was Fort Lemay, which was 1,000 east in Central Africa. Over a 4-day period, they crossed 4,350 miles.
Goodness.
And she talks in this book about the temperatures on the ground being 100, 110, 120 degrees. And even as high as they're flying, it'd still be 80, 90 degrees inside the airplane. So they would take off. They would take off before dawn and try to be done flying by noon because it would be too hot after that. Plus, as hot as the hotter it gets, the less lift you have from the air because the air gets a lot thinner. Okay. Normally over land, one utilizes contact flying, by which is meant following a map with landmarks spotted below.
Sure.
But in a strange country, a periodic check of position by celestial navigation can be comforting. In Fred Noonan's judgment, finding one's way over Africa was more difficult than over oceans. All right. So, and the maps that they had were also very inaccurate because there wasn't as much traveling around it by air, and there weren't highways below to find.
Well, yeah, it was the Dark Continent. It still is, as far as that goes. A lot of unexplored territories, and you don't know these landmarks.
Right. Okay. So from Fort Lamy, they flew to El Fasher, French Equatorial Africa. On June 13th, they flew into what she says Anglo-Egyptian Sudan, which is Khartoum. They flew into Khartoum.
Okay. So Egypt and Sudan border each other.
Yeah. The next, they flew to Masala in Italy's Eritrea. So in Eritrea.
Okay. Oh, they're up to Europe.
No, Eritrea is an African country.
Oh, it's in Italy.
It's it's further east. It's a little further east. It's a very small country.
The hop from Khartoum was as interesting as any part of the trip. The country, except that near the Nile, was bleak desert for many miles. Only a few caravan trails were visible, and now and then a camp with a tent or two in the midst of the stretching sand. I could see fine lines on the surface, whether from camel trails or wind streaks, I do not know. Possibly only the wrinkles in the ancient face of the wasteland. Exactly 200 miles out, we crossed at right angles at the Atbara River, which flows northward into the Nile. Thence the low desert roughened and rose, first into sloping sanding foothills, then mountains where green vegetation, almost the first we had seen in Africa, began to appear below us. Well into Eritrea, we flew over the headwaters of the second considerable river, the Khor Baruka, which drains the highland region northward into the Red Sea. Heated air blasted up from the mountain slopes, buffeting the ship unkindly. Even above 10,000 feet, it was rough going. The mountains over which we flew gained the crest of about 10,000 feet, only 30 miles from the saltwater and our destination. Our slide down those abrupt eastern slopes was perforce, no straight coasting, but the way of a snake. I had to spiral down. On June 14th, they flew down the Red Sea to Assab. They left Assab on June 15th before daybreak. Okay.
Yeah, there is a great deal to go, isn't there?
There is,
There's
and yet
a lot of story. I don't want to miss.
There's not that much more to
though.
the flight as much as they're going to be to the mystery.
There's the mystery, and there's all these Amelia quotes that I don't like skipping over because they're so fantastic.
Well, let's do two episodes, and we'll get to the mystery. We'll get to the mystery next time.
We'll leave them in northeastern Africa.
All right.
This is where our adventure ends for this week.
Absolutely. Well, because here's the thing: as much as it is, if there's going to be similar things next time, she's such a gifted writer that I don't mind listening to more.
I don't either. And we
love mysteries.
Yeah. This is the first time where I've thought I got to read this book.
Yeah.
Because of the language, her usage of language
is
beautiful.
Too.
It sounds easy
I know.
to read.
She's so colorful
and descriptive.
I love the way she writes. And I love her just from reading her writing. It's like fantastic.
Yeah, she's very endearing. And one of the things I love is you picture her as she's flying over Africa, these sort of adventure-y
Indiana Jones, I'm picturing the dots on the map.
If you look at those serials that Indiana Jones is based off of the 30s and 40s, of the jungles and the indigenous peoples and the adventures that you would get into in the wild animals, and she's experiencing this from the sky.
Yeah.
So you picture like when she was in what was it, Peru? Was she in Peru?
Venezuela
and Brazil. Like the temples that she might see.
Well, and she talks. I skipped over a lot of that stuff that when she'd stop. Sometimes she'd get a chance to leave. She'd always try to talk about the culture and something she saw or people she met while she was at these stops. And it's amazing.
And it's very cool, and it gives me a spirit of adventure.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely pick up on this next time. Yeah. We'd love to hear your all's thoughts about Amelia Earhart. I'm sure there will be a lot to come. And so therefore, until...
wait! Let us know whether you'd rather be burned alive or drowned.
Yeah.
That's.
I think you guys are going to win this one. I don't think I'm going to have many in my camp.
I don't want to burn. It's fire. It hurts.
I don't want to burn or drown.
Awful. No, I don't want to.
I think both are terrible ways to die.
Yeah.
No, if I had my choice, I'd get it'd be a sniper bullet in the back of the head when I'm not looking. Yeah. Like boom, done, over.
Hit by a train. That's what you want. I'll take
or hit by. Well, you see that coming though. You can hear it.
No, not necessarily. Maybe you're asleep.
Oh, well, that'd be fine if somebody threw me in front of a train while I'm asleep.
I'm going to be saving a bus full of children from ninjas. That's probably how I'm going to go.
That's how you should go. Yeah, that's a good idea. I'm going to try to go that way.
And on that note, until next time, stay wild.
Stay wild.
Stay tuned.